Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to O Sing Joyfully. This is the next installment of our hymn series, and I'm here today with Mimi Lanseur to talk about Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Hi, Mimi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I've got you can't see them, but some of my Christmas decorations are up already because it gets very
Yay.
dark very early, and we need the happy twinkle lights. Dang it.
It's dark all the time.
And you can actually see your happy twinkle lights, so that's nice.
Oh yes, my wall of happiness.
Yes. So tell us, before we get started, a bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, I am a staff singer at the Cathedral in the choir. I have been with the Cathedral since 2014. So this year has looked obviously a little bit different than in past years. And I love singing there. It's one of my favorite things about my week every week. And my choral biography is that I've been singing in choir my whole life. I've been singing for various churches since like 2008, 2007. And I went to a choir college for graduate school. So I'm just like really committed to the cause. And I don't work with music in my regular life. I work in a dental office and it's really fun. And if anyone ever has questions about teeth, just let me know. I'm happy to assist you.
Please do not send all of your weird teeth questions to music at Detroit Cathedral.
No, you can send them to me directly.
Just leave them in the comments or something like that.
So I feel like I come from a unique place. A lot of the people that I went to college and graduate school with had a really strong choral upbringing in the church, but I wasn't raised in the church. So I kind of came to singing church music and sacred music from first a place of it's an opportunity to hone my craft and sing with other people. It's a way to make some money working in the way that I want to work, and also the history of choral music and the church is so intertwined that even if I had never stepped foot in a church, I would have always been singing specifically Christian sacred music, Western European sacred music, throughout my entire career, and it's a really big part of being a singer. So I think that that there's a lot of really great messages and spirit and all of that in lots of church singing. But for the most part, it doesn't always like particularly speak to me. It's very beautiful. And, a lot of times the poetry is really lovely, but I don't have a spiritual connection to it the same way that most of my peers do. So I find enjoyment in it in other ways. However, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing it just kind of falls into a different category for me. It's one of those hymns that I don't think I really knew. I knew it before, like I knew what a hymn was. And the melody is very, very beautiful and easy to get stuck in your head. So yeah, I think that mostly it's just that I like to enjoy choral music in my day-to-day life, and I really like it when I find something that kind of like grounds me more than other things would.
Do you remember, if you say that you kind of knew this before you knew what a hymn was, do you remember when you first heard it, or kind of when you were started to be aware of it?
So I don't remember when I first heard it, but I do remember when it kind of like clicked for me as something that was really important to me. I'm sure you are familiar with the fantastic show This American Life.
Yes.
I
can hear Ira Glass's in my voice in my
and his like kind of sexy vocal fry. So I think it's an episode of This American Life. I tried to find it, but I couldn't. I can't think of another show that it could have been in, but it was a story about a man who is a pastor, I think in like a Presbyterian or Lutheran church. I don't know though, because maybe they wouldn't play this hymn there. I don't know. So anyway,
this is a pretty universal one.
Okay, good. Yeah. He cheated on his wife, and his wife found out. I think like she called the house or something happened where like he had to kind of like come clean in front of his wife and his daughter like all at once. And it's a small town, and things get around. So but the point of the story that he's telling is when he took that into his sermon and into his preaching, and he talked about humility and about forgiveness and about all of these things, and then they played this hymn and he talked about this hymn, and it was kind of like the first time that I think I had really heard somebody talk about their own personal, like how something personally connected them to their faith, and that had a really big impact on me, and I it's not very surprising because I that's how I connect to a lot of people, is like, let's find something in common and let's connect on a human level. But I remember I was sitting in my car in like a Meijer parking lot or a Target parking lot or something, like probably it was winter time, and I was like trying to stay warm, didn't want to get out of the car, and I was just like listening to him talk about this journey of recognizing that what is it that Mary Pickford says, it's not the failure is not the falling down but the staying down, and I think that really hit me and like in my life, and I think that the text of this hymn specifically is really connected to that part of humanity in which we will fail and we will error and we will fall, but as long as our hearts are in with love and with compassion, and that's not just for the world and for our God, if that's what we believe in, but also for ourselves. So I think that was a really impactful experience for me.
Yeah, well, and in the context of that story that you just mentioned, I mean, it makes a lot of sense that this would be a hymn that he would come to, because you get that great, sorry, I have my hymnal open next to me, you get that great bit at the end of the second verse, Jesus sought me when a stranger wandering from the fold of God.
Yes.
And I mean,
Yep.
the way that it matches, it's a gorgeous tune, and the way that the words match it, just, and this is something that's come up kind of in every one of these hymn interviews that we've recorded so far, is that part of what makes a truly great hymn, or a hymn that really, really sticks with people, is that it's a good text and it's a good tune and they're so good together.
Yes. Which is what makes good music.
Right. And what's interesting specifically to me is that, so I also have a long history with this hymn, just because, I don't know, it's one of the goodies, and I'm looking at the words and music citation in the hymnal. It's not Welsh as far as I can tell, which is like impressive considering how good it is. The Welsh get all the best tunes. But it is the tune Nettleton from A Repository of Sacred Music, Part 2, 1813. So we have the Regency to thank for it, I suppose. But it works. I've sung this in, cathedrals. I've sung this in small parishes. I have sung this at church camp. I went to church camp for 16 years, and then I was a counselor for a summer in the hills of West Virginia. The main instrument at church camp is the guitar. So I've been up in a tiny...
this would be so good with guitar.
It is so good with guitars. And
that sounds so cool.
Church camp is also the one time when I personally am okay with like projector hymns, because it's just a culture where actually it's pretty easy to teach campers melodies. You just run it through once or twice and you just project the stuff up, and most of the church songs you do at church camp are not in the hymnal 1982. Mostly we were doing Days of Elijah and Lord prepare me to be a sanctuary, which like all very dear to my heart, and that's a completely separate podcast episode. But it was kind of cool to see, when I was a camper, my fellow campers, or when I was a counselor, like campers I was caring for, who either like did not go to church in their regular life, like this, they just liked this camp and they came with their cousins and it happened to be a church camp, or they loved camp but they thought church at home was kind of boring, and we're all, which like fair, I didn't go to their parishes, it might have been, but then we're all jamming to, you know, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, played on like dual guitar. And it was cool to know that that is something that might be sung when they go home. And they could think about, oh, well, also I've sung this at camp and I like this one. And we used to joke, the year I was a counselor, we kind of had a running joke about what the title of our memoirs would be. And so I think for a week I was like, ooh, Jesus taught me when a stranger wandering from the fold of God, the Mary Grahame Hunter story.
Mary Grahame, did you know?
Yeah.
That's what it should be called.
We're not going to start that. Tune in later, listeners, maybe, I don't know, for a personal discussion of Mary Did You Know. We'll make it a bonus episode or something. But there's this him in particular, you're not the only musician I know who this really, really resonates with. Actually, one of my coworkers at that church camp had a gorgeous tattoo that said, "Tune my heart to sing thy grace," that she got after her first summer as a counselor at that camp, and she was baptized that summer. And it, like, this is a deeply important text to her. And so there's something so, the relationship with God that this text imagines is so musical. It is so impossible to extract from a musical sort of expression.
Yeah, and I feel too like that one of my favorite songs from a musical, whatever pieces, is Make Our Garden Grow, which is, you know, obviously amazing. And I feel like it has a lot of the same like very similar messages, and like, we are neither pure nor wise nor good, we do the best we know. Mm-hmm. You know, we bake our bread and chop our wood and make our garden grow. And I feel that,
is that Bernstein?
Yes, the end of Candide. And it, you know, it's very like, it's always at the end of this hymn that I really am, and you know, I think it's probably kind of lucky that we haven't sung it at the cathedral very much in the time I've been there, because I would just not be able to do it. But it's the end. Oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let that goodness like a fetter bind my wandering heart to thee. And like, prone to wander. And I think that, I mean, I don't have to say like, you don't have to believe in God in order to be moved by this, because that's my experience. Mm-hmm. And that, like, I think that for me, what I get out of it is, you know, to the most powerful thing, whether you want to call it an energy or a physical thing or an experience, is love. Mm-hmm. And whatever you need to do in order to be able to love the world, do it. Mm-hmm. You know, whatever your journey is, whatever your faith and your spiritual path is. And I think that that's really, really powerful here, of that for me, like, the idea of God is like, that's what love is. And, mm-hmm. and it's very simple. And when you bow to it, when you recognize your humility in front of it, when you recognize that it will, there's always a return on that investment, even if you don't know it at the time. And that love does not have to exist contrary to anger and grief and sadness, and that it is the vessel that will get us through our grief and our anger and our sadness. Mm-hmm. And you know, for a person who has cheated on his spouse, which, like, it's not just as simple as cheating on your spouse, right? Like, it's a contract between you and God and your spouse. Like, it's mm-hmm. it's not like, I'm not married, I don't know that. And, you know, so to have the courage and the humility and the compassion and the love to work through that together, and then to put that in front of your congregation, that's just like very well embodied, I think, in this text. And I think about that a lot when I read it, of just like, it's not simple. It's okay to make mistakes sometimes, right? It's that it is work to mm-hmm. get back on the path that you want to be on. And that work takes love, and it takes hard compassion and gentle pressure with the people that we love. And that, you know, the hatred that we think that we're feeling a lot of times is also love in a different way. And or maybe we're projecting things onto other people, or we're seeing reflections of our trauma in other people. But if you try to work through that without recognizing that it affects you, without recognizing that you have to be kind to yourself and to others, and you won't get there. And you know, that's what I really get out of this. And I think that's really important to being a human.
And I think it's so interesting that I love that you brought up the third verse, because I think I always kind of forget about, like, paradoxically, it means so much to me that I have to scrub it from my brain every time I finish singing the hymn, or else I'll just kind of lose my mind. And I think it's worth noting for the viewer at home, the listener at home who may not know, I did grow up in the church. I'm a cradle Episcopalian. I've been in the church my whole life. And I mean, and like, you and I are good friends. We've had a lot of conversations about this, you know, just the two of us in someone's apartment. But it is not amusing, although I am a bit amused about it. I guess it delights me that this hymn means so much to both of us in fairly similar ways. I mean, I think about, you know, oh to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. First of all, I mean, just like the concept of grace, right, is something that is so, because what is grace? Grace is love.
I have like literal chills right now.
Yeah. And not to make this just an episode where I talk about being a church camp counselor all the time, although I mean, it's great. But this summer I was there with our middle schoolers. We did some work with them with the catechism in the Book of Common Prayer, because in a couple of years they'd be making their confirmation, and it's always good to start early. And so we just started talking about some basic definitions. And I can remember that kind of what we came up for, you know, with grace is that it's God's love. It's unasked for. It's undeserved. You're never going to deserve it. That's not how this works. That's not the point. Like, grace is completely outside of the framework of deserve. And so every so often I'm just floored by that. And there's something about the next line, let thy goodness like a fetter bind my wandering heart to thee, that just reminds me of Donne. John Donne and some of the holy sonnets, you know, batter my heart, three-person God.
Oh my God, that one's so good.
Where sometimes you just have this urge of, you know, we've all had that moment where we do stuff that we don't want to do. It's like, it's John Mulaney, I also don't want to be doing what I'm doing. And you notice that. And certainly as a person of faith, I've had those moments. I think you see it in the hymn. I think you see it in Donne's holy sonnets, where you're like, God, Lord, I also don't want to be doing what I'm doing. Like, can you step in and help, basically? And again, I think that that's something that, even if you're not religious or spiritual, even if, you know, God is kind of not your next stepping point from that moment, I think it's a moment a lot of us are very familiar with. And I agree with you that I think kind of in all circumstances, coming back to love, how, you know, however you practice that, however you conceive of that to be, is what's going to get you where you need to go. So
yeah, got it.
Yeah,
love is the greatest weapon to win the war caused by hate and pain.
Yeah. And I think I certainly don't have a problem, I mean, this is me personally, with it being framed in those terms. I mean, you think of the Archangel Michael flies around. I don't presume it travels, however angels travel, with a sword raised above his head. Probably with a jetpack. But, you know, everything of every Renaissance painting of, you know, Michael slaying the dragon from Revelation you've ever seen, guys, got a broadsword, you know, over his head. And so I don't think that there's anything paradoxical about framing love you know, it doesn't always have to be, it's not always, I'd say it's not warm and fuzzy at all. I find it's quite terrifying. It's the capital R romantic idea of the sublime, you know, it's awful.
And the things it will make you do, and the I mean, like, I am floored by what moving through love has helped me do in the last 4 years specifically. Like the understanding that it's helped me get to with people, like my relationships are stronger, our conflicts are meaningful, we don't run away from conflict, we really, and it is I find that I have really grasped, I think, as close to an understanding of what unconditional love is as I could have at this point in my life, because I experienced it. It's not just that I'm receiving it, right? Like your parents love you unconditionally if you're, you know, for hopefully, but to be able to give it out and to know that there are people in my life that whatever the challenge is, be it great or small or good or bad, it, like, I choose to go through it with you. I choose to respect your space. I choose to, you know, do everything that I can to make you happy. And it also, like, it releases things that are like dark inside me. And it's been a really amazing experience to really, like, focus on how powerful, and you're right, it's terrifying and I think that a lot of times we hear about, like, the things, oh, love will make you do crazy things, right? But, like, love will also make you do things that you didn't think were possible, and will make you fight for things that you never thought you'd have the courage to fight for. And that's a lot to deal with, you know?
Well, and
it's very scary.
As we're recording this, it is the first week of Advent, and I feel like this is actually a very appropriate conversation for the season and for the run-up to Christmas, which, it's always been my personal belief, is a deeply weird holiday, and frankly, a terrifying one, because it is about unconditional. Yes, but the reason to me that Christmas is terrifying in that kind of capital R romantic sublime way is that it's the incarnation, and the incarnation is about that unconditional love. You know, for Christians, God saying, I have so much love pouring out of me. Look at those poor guys down there. Someone should go and help them. I guess I'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like God doing that scene from Good Will Hunting, where he's like, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, and just, like, embraces him despite the fact that, like, in that moment he hates himself so much that he can't see the good in himself. And I, you know, and it, like, it makes me think too about, like, it's one of the reasons why I love Holy Week so much, because there's such a strong focus on, okay, so, like, yeah, there's all this stuff that we're, like, trying to get you to get on board with, but, like, seriously, forget it. Just, like, love each other. And, like, that's my commandment to you. And that is, it sounds so simple, it's just 2 words, but it's so hard to do, to, like, actually love people and let them live their life. And, like, and it's just like, and it really, you know, you have to put it into action, you have to put it into work, and that's also with yourself, you have to do that.
Well, and for me, I mean, the reason I have never seriously thought about quitting the church, but every time I think about, you know, oh, the church, I just can't quit you. But God, why? Have you seen it? I mean, truly for me, it comes back to Jesus, among many things, including, to me, being the Son of God, and God is a teacher. And the first and most overarching question I think that Christians ask of him is, teacher, teach us how to love. And, like, that's what the Gospels are, is Jesus teaching us how to love. And it is oftentimes very confusing and very distressing, and sometimes
very contradictory.
And looks like anger, and looks like annoyance, and looks like a lot of things. And that doesn't stop it from being love, from literally the beginning to the end, to the joke's on you, that wasn't the end, to the ascension into heaven, angels saying, why are you standing around? He's taught you how to love, so go on. go do it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I think that encompasses all of it all together. It's like, you have to love, and it comes full circle, and we love each other and we love ourselves. And here are a million lessons that aren't even remotely enough to get you through. And I can write down every single rule, but you still have to figure it out on your own. And like, if you're lucky, you get a handful of people in your life who fall into that circle for you. And I definitely feel like I have a huge circle of people that I feel that way about, and it makes me stronger when it comes to doing it for more and more people.
Yeah. Well, and I think that this is something we probably have collectively known cerebrally, but pandemic's really throwing it in sharp relief. Can't do it by yourself. Love
never do anything by yourself.
Literally can't happen in a vacuum. So
literally.
So yeah, well, thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to say about this hymn before we kind of wrap it up?
No, thank you for talking with me. And it was so wonderful to like revisit this, especially with us not doing it. And actually me and we did to do a quartet virtual choir recording of this.
Yes. So dear listener, you either have heard it already or you are about to hear it. It is connected to this episode somehow.
Yes. But if you haven't listened to Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing lately, I highly recommend it. And that is all.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much. And for our dear listeners, our dear viewers, you can find us in all of the usual places. We are on Facebook, the Cathedral Church of St. Paul, Instagram, St. Paul's Detroit. That's St. Paul's, no apostrophe, Detroit. Our website is detroitcathedral.org. You can sign up for our newsletter there, which highly recommend. You'll get all of the latest updates. And then also on the website, you'll find links to all sorts of online worship. We have some form of worship every day and several times on Sundays. So Mimi, thank you again so much for doing this, for being here with me. This was great.
It was wonderful. And please, everyone, wear a mask and stay safe.
Stay safe, yes.
Teach